All right, welcome to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast, your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. Today is Monday, May 6, 2024. Obviously, we are in a busy election cycle. Today, I'm going to be focusing on Trump's VEEPSTAKes, who's being mentioned, who's missing, in my opinion. So we'll get right into that. First off, I think what I want to do is play a video for you. And by the way, welcome to the podcast. You can find me on all things social media at The Carl Jackson Show. And please subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get your podcast. So this is funny news, but obviously we're going to be talking about the VEEPSTAKes today. I'll bring you some of the issues that are occurring in the news as well. But Google had decided to censor a Trump campaign ad. Now, allegedly, they've decided to reverse that decision. So I'm going to play the ad for you real quick, and you'll be able to figure out real quickly why they wanted to get rid of that ad. It was very effective, and so now they're reversing that. I think Google is going to be going bye-bye. I was listening to a program over the weekend, and where it was AI, it was focused on AI, but just how, doing a search with this new AI, I won't say the name of I haven't looked into it enough, but just this new AI program where you can travel, whether locally or nationally or even internationally, and basically you can look up this AI search and it'll give you a whole entire itinerary with choices and so on, etc. And I listened to a program that really it's kind of uncanny for me because I'm not a big tech guy, but it was a fascinating conversation with a gentleman that had built an AI business that he claims is less intrusive, and it'll do what Google will do plus some without the censorship and all that kind of stuff. So I think Google is really shooting themselves in the foot. But Daily Wire reported that Google had removed an ad from Trump's presidential campaign that targeted Joe Biden on inflation and legal immigration. And then the ad reportedly sought to reach black voters with whom Biden is struggling in recent polling and in rural Georgia. However, after facing significant backlash online, Google appears to have reversed its decision. The operative word there is appears. So I'm going to let you take a look at the ad. Gabe has got it ready to go, and you can make up your own mind, or you can listen to it. If for those of you that may not be watching on YouTube and Rumble, please subscribe on YouTube and Rumble. We really do need you there. We would certainly appreciate that. And share. If you would share, if you can rate the podcast on Google and on YouTube and Rumble. Well, YouTube is Google, unfortunately, but we would certainly appreciate that. But let's go ahead and roll that video, por favor, Gabe.
Hello, I'm with the Biden campaign.
Yeah, I voted for Biden last time.
That's fantastic.
Is it? Everything costs more. Food, gas, rent.
Okay, but Biden's helping pay rent for newcomers to America from around the world.
You mean illegal immigrants? I'm struggling to pay my bills, but Biden's paying rent for illegals? They get handouts and I'm paying for it.
But Biden can still count on your vote, right?
Things were better before Biden. I'm voting for Trump.
Make America Great Again Inc. is responsible for the content of this advertising.
All right, so that's a quick, concise, effective ad. And listen, I prefer an ad like this, and I'll tell you why. Because it impacts everybody, including blacks. Blacks are seeing the preferential treatment that illegal aliens are getting. As a matter of fact, I'll share with you a couple of other headlines that have hit. The preferential treatment that illegal aliens are getting, even in places like Chicago, different places in New York, California, where many people are suffering, right, because of Bidenomics. And I've got some news on that, but I'm going to talk about it tomorrow. I intended to do a split podcast today, but so much going on even around the house, I just don't have time today. So I'll get into that tomorrow. CNN is trying to cover for Biden's economy, and I want to talk about that. They're saying there's a problem, but then saying Biden is basically doing kind of sending mixed messages in that column. And so I'm going to break that down tomorrow, Bidenomics, because it's absolutely insane. But I think when you look at ads like this, Google tried to nix it for the same reason. I didn't get into this last week with this Boeing whistleblower that was killed, but for the same, all right, that may have allegedly died. All right, allegedly died. Allegedly, you know what I'm saying? But I didn't get into that last week, but I believe all this stuff is connected. I just started thinking, what if what if Democrats are so fearful of a Trump re-election that they're willing to knock off people like a whistleblower who might be able to fix if Trump were to come in and be able to work on fixing that particular industry, or knowing who's doing what, who's doing the dirt and such. And, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but we all have to admit in the last few years, things have gone so bizarre, so crazy under this little wannabe dictator who is Joe Biden, that you have to absolutely question everything. All right. Now, having said that, let me give you the names that are included in this in the VEEPSTAKES thus far. The names that are being mentioned, the names that are being talked about behind the scenes. This, according to the Washington Examiner, and I'll give you some of their summary, and I'll opine on the names. But you've got Senator Marco Rubio being one, Senator Tim Scott being another, Senator J.D. Vance being another, Representative Elisa Stefanik of New York being another, Representative Byron Donalds right here in Florida being another, Governor Doug Burgum, also Governor Kristi Noem. I'll get into that because I don't think Noem is going nowhere. You get it, Gabe? You get it? All right. That's my joke for the day. Dr. Ben Carson. Dr. Ben Carson, and also Representative Tulsi Gabbard. I'm going to give you my take on all of these people, and I'm going to share with you the name that I believe is missing, or who's missing from this list, that I think, quite frankly, would be a far better choice than anybody that you see on this list. And that isn't to knock the people on this list. I think you've got some good names on this list, but I'm considering what America is enduring right now, the commie takeover of the left. And we have to keep in mind that the VEEP stakes, a lot of people are getting, oh, yeah, this is fun. And it's all for entertainment purposes. And listen, I understand that people want to drive up ratings and this and that. So they'll talk about this. They'll talk about Trump's polls all the time. Guys, I'm interested in saving the country. And so not only am I hoping that Donald Trump will win in 2024, but I'm praying that he will be humble enough to pick a person, as far as the VP is concerned, that will be a person that can honestly do even more for MAGA than Trump could. Because obviously Trump, unfortunately, in the last year of his presidency, pretty much undid everything that he had accomplished during the first 3 years of his presidency. And I understand that he was duped, but the left did a number on him, and then they've been doing a number on all of us ever since, starting with those lockdowns from the pandemic. Pandemic started, and then obviously the left used lockdowns and new rules to capitalize on and defeat Trump in 2020. However you want to say the election went, I'm not going to get into it. You guys know how I stand on that and how I feel about that. But the left used COVID to capitalize, and I think they gaffled all of us, and we've been feeling the pain ever since. So Trump gets redemption possibly here. He'll be able to get redemption. And but if he gets redemption, guys, we can't just be looking at 4 years. I hate to tell you, we're looking at a generational fight, and I believe that things are going to get worse in America before they get better. But winning in 2024, this year, November, would be a great start. We would also have to win the House. We would have to win the Senate. And then I got to tell you, I know, for those of you that are listening to this podcast, you love freedom so much, you'll be in the fight with me. But I believe 2026 will be a good fight too, will be a much needed fight too, because I think that we'll need to change out a lot of the people that are in the House. I just think we have far too many rhinos to get anything accomplished. And I think that although I think Trump will be able, Lord willing, will be able to win, I'm hopeful, I'm prayerful, we will be able to win and stop much of the bleeding that the Biden administration, the bloodbath that the Biden administration has put us through. I don't think he'll be able to get as much accomplished as he'll need to get accomplished, because he'll only have one term. And honestly, if we're being honest, for those of you that are real truth seekers, if you're being honest, Trump will actually have 6 months to a year to make something happen. It's not a farce when people say the first 100 days of a presidency matters. It absolutely matters in setting the tone and setting the policy and then implementing that policy throughout your 4 years, and you know the left and the deep state are going to be able to be fighting them every which way but loose. Well, Carl, he'll get rid of the deep state, quickly. It's not going to be that easy, guys. Don't let anybody blow smoke up your butt. It is simply not going to be that easy. We're in for a generational fight. Are you down? Because that's what it's going to take. Back in the Revolutionary War days, a lot of these our founders, it was guns and ammo, right? I mean, it was bloody. We don't have that type of fight. We have a different type of fight to win this country back, or to take this country back. All right, so this is Trump talking about Columbia University and them canceling their commencement address. He says that shouldn't happen. It also just came out that many of the protesters are backed by Biden's donors. Now, I want to make this clear, because I don't think this is the best tactic for the right to be talking about. Yeah, we know that a lot of these people, or many of these people, are backed by Biden's donors. We know that many of them are backed by the George Soroses of the world. A lot of these outside agitators that New York City Mayor Eric Adams was talking about, all these, anti-Jewish, pro-Hamas protests that were going on these college campuses, particularly the Ivy League, and then they started spreading across the North. But I don't want to get into this outside agitator thing, because the truth of the matter is the outside agitators believe the very same things that the people on those college campuses believe. I know many of them are naive and stupid. I mean, book smart, but street dumb as all get out, gullible, easy to take advantage of, lemmings for the left. I get it. But essentially, the outside agitators and the students within these college campuses believe the same thing. And I think it is a dumb mistake for Republicans to let them off the hook. Here's President Trump talking about the commencement address for Columbia, I believe, being canceled. Let's go ahead and roll that video, por favor, Gabe.
Are you going to testify? I have a gag order as to that first question. As you know, they've taken away my constitutional rights, so I'm not allowed to answer that question. This has never happened in this country before. It's a ridiculous thing. It's a ridiculous case. I did nothing wrong, absolutely nothing wrong. Take a look at Greg Jarrett this morning. He went on. Take a look at Andrew McCarthy or Jonathan Turley or Mark Levin. It's like they say there's no case here. And yet the judge has gagged me, and I'm not allowed to talk about, I guess, his total conflict. The judge is totally conflicted, and you ought to take a look at it. And I'm not supposed to be talking about it. But I am allowed to say that the judge has a conflict that like nobody's ever had before. You ought to take a look at it. He's taken away my constitutional right to speak. I was in Miami this weekend, and reporters are asking me questions, the same questions like you're asking me, and I have to say I have a gag order, I can't speak about it. Never happened before, ever. Number one. Number two, it's a fake trial. They have no case, and it's been absolutely proven now. They have no case whatsoever. This is Alvin Bragg doing it for political reasons for Biden. This is a Biden trial. He's a crooked president. Now, it just came out, Columbia just canceled their commencement. Axios. Columbia just canceled their commencement. That shouldn't happen. And it also came out that the protesters, many of the protesters, are backed by Biden's donors. Okay? Are you listening, Israel? I hope you're listening, Israel. Hope you're getting smart. But they're backed by Biden donors. That's where the money's coming from. And I'm not surprised at all. There's many other articles, many of them having to do with the gag order and the unconstitutionality having to do with the gag order. And it is unconstitutional, and it shouldn't be allowed. And I wish people could move a little bit quicker, the appellate courts, because the whole world is watching this, and they see what's happening. More importantly, frankly, they have no case. They have absolutely no case. It's a political hoax. It's election interference. Anything they can do, and even the witnesses they want to bring up, they have nothing to do with the case. This is a ridiculous situation. Not fair, but we will fight. Thank you, Mr.
It's so sad. Think about these people. I'm not naive and gullible enough to believe that everybody at Columbia University are bad, right? Obviously, there's going to be some good students mixed up in there. or attending these colleges that just want to get their education and get out of there and get their nice fancy jobs and get their nice, buy their nice homes and buy their nice cars and all that kind of good stuff. You know that those type of things that exist. But I got to tell you, man, I don't know, man. Those colleges are so nuts. It's absolutely insane. But what shouldn't happen is I don't believe that the vast majority of students are out there, supporting Hamas and are anti-Jewish. I haven't seen the numbers, but I suspect largely that the vast majority of students attending these colleges are not anti-Jewish and are not pro-Hamas, pro-terrorist, or what have you. But certainly what should not happen are none of these commencement addresses, none of these graduation ceremonies should be stopped. None of them should be. Why would you allow kids to feel that pain? Kids that have worked so hard to succeed. I'm sure many of them are spoiled brats. But regardless, if you've worked hard, to graduate and to get your degree, certainly that should be celebrated, in my opinion. That's a major accomplishment. That's a major milestone, and you should have the ceremony to celebrate that. And for some of these universities to cancel that is just absolutely insane and stunning, in my opinion. But here's some good news. This is another. These frat boys have been popping up, and I got to tell you, honestly, I totally forgot about this. I've had so much going on this weekend, but oh my goodness, now. But I totally forgot about this because that saying that youth is wasted on the young. Well, I got to tell you, that's not necessarily true with everyone. So this is from Blaze Media, and we'll show you the video here. But some young students, I believe this was at Ole Miss. We believe in God and Jesus. We don't stand for that. Pro-Hamas radicals evacuated from Ole Miss in face of Old Glory. All right, so taking a page from the playbook of the UNC fraternity brothers who captured America's heart for protecting a U.S. flag on campus this week amid anti-Israel protests. More than 200 students at the University of Mississippi, known as Ole Miss, showed up with U.S. flags, red, white, and blue attire to drown out much of the smaller group. They say pro-Palestinian, They're Hamas. They're Hamas. All right, these people, in my opinion, are playing a part in Hamas's psychological warfare against Westerners and against Israelis, against Jews, and they're going to get people killed. So they are Hamas. They're not pro-Palestine, pro-Palestinian. Palestine doesn't exist. Let's go ahead and play this video. Por favor, Gabe.
Campuses have been sweeping the nation, and today, as you can see here behind us, that movement made its way to Oxford, Mississippi.
That's exactly right. A group of protesters at Ole Miss wanted to make their voices heard. However, they weren't the only ones who had something to say. Now, our Griffin Demaray drove down to the university today and drove back with this report.
The Palestine protest on the Ole Miss campus brought out a little bit of everything.
I believe that's just the most important thing for us to do right now is protect everything that we stand for.
And I thought that we were making an effort to change that and to get back on the right side of things. And it doesn't seem like, looking at what we've done today, it doesn't seem like that's what we're doing.
The protest, which was supposed to start at the University Circle, was forced to move after a group of students blocked the area and said they were protecting the flag. Ole Miss student Aubrey Grace said he thought it was the right thing to do.
But recently, with the encampments across the nation, you've seen violence on other school campuses, and that's something that we cannot tolerate, especially as Americans.
So the protest moved to another part of campus where they were greeted by hundreds of counter-protesters. For a while, things were peaceful. There was a lot of yelling from both sides, but that is to be expected in a situation like this. It all changed when a pro-Palestine protester threw a bottle of water into the crowd. From there, the crowd started throwing different things like bottles of water and food, and that is when the police stepped in.
All right, we can cut it there. Gabe. All right, so anyway, listen, the bottom line is there are some students, there are some good young people out there, so youth isn't completely wasted on the young. This gives me some hope. One of the girls, and I didn't see it in this video, and maybe it was further along in the video, basically she was like, listen, just like we stand for God and Jesus here. Don't bring that northern crap down here to the south. I'm paraphrasing, but that was basically her sentiment. All right, so that was just interesting. So that gave me a bit of hope. Listen, guys, before we move on, before I go through these VEEP stakes real quick here, I want to talk to you about wealth protection research. All right, so I want to talk to you about them. All right, so here's the deal with wealth protection research. At the very heart of our democracy lies a principle that we all hold sacred, and that is our free speech. That is the cornerstone that supports every freedom that we cherish, allowing our ideas to flourish, debates to ignite, like you just saw on that campus, and progress to be made. Without it, and that is free speech, our pursuit of liberty, our ability to challenge, and our capacity to innovate would be severely constrained. Yet in today's digital age, the very platform that should democratize information is being used to narrow the spectrum of ideas that we're exposed to. Hence Google, that we talked about earlier with that Trump ad. Important discussions about our wealth, our rights, and our future are being systematically silenced or overshadowed in mainstream narratives, leaving many people feeling voiceless in conversations crucial to our financial independence and our security. This is where wealth protection research steps in. They're armed with a mission that's never been more critical. Wealth protection research is not a financial advisory firm. They are defenders of free speech. They are committed to giving a voice to the silence in an era where dialogues about retirement, investments, and economic freedoms are increasingly censored. Wealth protection research is focused on ensuring that diverse, controversial, and revolutionary ideas have a platform. All right, so now, wealth protection research tirelessly seeks out the financial experts, the thought leaders, and the trailblazers who've been pushed to the margins by mainstream media and tech platforms like Facebook and Google. These are the voices that challenge prevailing narratives, offering fresh, often contrarian perspectives on protecting and growing your wealth, especially as we navigate the uncertainties of the 2024 election. By spotlighting these thinkers like Jim Rickards and Porter Stansberry, wealth protection research is not just sharing financial advice. They are fostering a movement towards a more open, informed, and a free society. All right, so here's an exclusive offer for you guys. All right, wealth protection research has now created a 2024 election wealth protection report. And guys, the stuff that I was reading on the economy tomorrow, you're really going to want this 2024 election wealth protection report from Wealth Protection Research. This free report highlights the 3 best ideas for protecting and growing your money heading into the 2024 election. It contains ideas the mainstream media won't touch, and listeners can get it completely free. All you have to do is text the word IDEAS, IDEAS, to 76626. Again, IDEAS, IDEAS, to 76626. Plus, if you text IDEAS today, you'll also get a free gold investment kit from Wealth Protection Research sponsor Augusta Precious Metals. That is cool. Wow. So again, if you text the word IDEAS to 76626, you'll also get a free gold investment kit from Wealth Protection Research sponsor Augusta Precious Metals. All right, so check them out. Wealth Protection Research. And also, guys, listen, this was a very extremely busy week and weekend for me. It was absolutely exhausting. But what I did last night is I laid my head down on a MyPillow and I got some rest. Actually, I overslept this morning. I'm not lying. Gabe knows that I'm telling the truth. All right, so I overslept this morning in part to MyPillow. All right, so right now MyPillow has this $25 extravaganza that is going on. We all know that Mike Lindell has been canceled from these big box stores and from these shopping channels. Well, right now, it started off as a one product company with MyPillow, which I absolutely love. But Mike now has hundreds of products thanks to his dedicated employees. So he wants to get the word out. $25 extravaganza. You're talking about a 2-pack multi-use MyPillows for just $25. They got the MyPillow sandals are $25. The 6-pack towel set is $25. Brand new 4-pack of dish towels, you guessed it, $25. And for the first time ever, the premium MyPillows with all new Giza fabric are just $25 as well. And then orders over $75 will receive free shipping too. All you have to do is go to mypillow.com, use the promo code Carl, or call 800-858-0263. Again, that number 800-858-0263. Use the promo code Carl, C-A-R-L. I don't spell it like the commie. All right, let's get right into it. Senator Marco Rubio. All right, now this, according to the Washington Examiner, Rubio, they say well-known, telegenic. You guys all know Rubio is well-spoken, handsome guy. At one point in time back in the day, I thought he was a lock for being the president of the United States. And then people like Ted Cruz came along, and I was like, oh, I don't know, I like this guy, get it better. And then you had Trump came along and just blew everybody out of the water. So it simply didn't happen. But Rubio messed up initially. You guys may recall when he got into the Senate, one thing that he worked with was the Gang of Eight in the Senate. And he, in my opinion, he's had this reemergence. I love Senator Marco Rubio's ability to be able to communicate. He is more of a war hawk. Would he bring something to Trump's ticket? You know what? I do think so. I do think that Marco Rubio would be a good vice president. But in all of these people, what I'm looking for is a president that can stand up to what we're enduring right now. And that is the communist takeover of the left by our, communist takeover of our institutions, so on, et cetera. So here's what I'm looking for. You're going to need somebody that's strong on jobs, that can be strong, if not stronger, on jobs and economy. They're going to have to be able to control spending. As much as I love former President Donald Trump, and I'm hoping that he gets reelected. If he does get reelected, he is going to have to curtail spending like he did not do in his first term. And listen, guys, I'm just going to be straight with you, because the truth of the matter is, I don't have a love affair with politicians. My freedom is what's most important to me. Your freedom should be what's most important to you. And frankly, you have a duty as an American under our Constitution to make sure that you keep every single politician in check. And you shouldn't love any politician, in my opinion. Now, you should love their policies and what their policies have done for your fellow man. But that's the way that I look at all of these people. They are absolute tools to make sure that we remain free. Getting back to Marco Rubio again, excellent orator, excellent speaker. His conservative rating, I look at their conservative scores back in June of 2022, it was 71%. That is not great. That is a C. And that's what's most disconcerting to me. Now, his numbers may be slightly higher. I was trying to look. I saw something that said 77%, but I couldn't confirm that it was his. But that may be. So I'm going to have to go do a little more research later. But typically, I just go look at their conservative liberty scores and see where they stand. Because, guys, you're going to have, again, jobs and economy are going to be important. Foreign policy is going to be important. Crime is going to be important, and not nationalizing crime. I'll get into that in a second. But sometimes you just use the bully platform to speak about issues that are going on in the country. But in my opinion, except for federal crime, crime is always a state and local issue. I don't want federal politicians getting involved in that nonsense. That's how you deepen the deep state. The culture. That's going to be a big fight, whether it's DEI, CRT, this trans stuff, all of that stuff is going to be a big fight. So when you look into and going forward, and that's what the left are using to try to impose and implement communism inside of the United States. Limited government. I already spoke about that. We got to not just stop spending, but some of these bureaucracies have to be amputated. Election integrity. Deep state. These are some of the issues that I'm concerned about. Will Marco Rubio do that? I don't know. I don't know. And as much as I like Marco Rubio, those are the things that make me, again, we're looking at a generational fight. Some people have mentioned RFK Jr. For a Trump VP pick. Don't be silly. All right, guys, all right. Robert Kennedy, I appreciate what he did standing up for the lockdowns and the jab and all that kind of stuff. But he's on the left. All right. He's not even a moderate Democrat. He's on the left. All right. Except for that particular issue. But this study goes on to say Marco Rubio, 53 years of age at the end of this month anyway. Trump turned 78 in June. So obviously that would add some youth to the ticket if they were running against Biden. And Marco Rubio would absolutely destroy Kamala Harris in any type of debate. Says here from Washington Examiner, Rubio ran for president in 2016 when he was viewed as Trump's polar opposite on issues like immigration and foreign policy. Like I said, that Gang of Eight thing, Marco Rubio has since changed his tune. He was like, listen, he even voted against a bill sending money to Ukraine if the borders weren't secure. So even though he is a foreign policy hawk. And you know what I'm saying? At least he's got that right now. He's like, no money for this until we secure our own border. So I appreciate that. He's kind of moved to the more populist area. All right. Some of the cons, according to Washington Examiner, our Trump supporters still distrust Rubio. I'm one of those that are a little, out. And I like Senator Marco Rubio. He's one of my senators. I like him. I think he does a good job for the most part. I'm not. Still, I don't know. I'm still a little out. All right. His status as Floridian also raises some constitutional problems. Why is that? Because either he or Trump would have to move in order for Florida's electors to be able to vote for both of them. So you saw Dick Cheney do this with George W. Bush in 2000, where both of them were residents of Texas. And basically, Dick Cheney changed his residence back to Wyoming in order to be on the ticket. Number two, you got Senator Tim Scott. Senator Tim Scott, Washington Examiner writes, the genial South Carolinian would be the GOP's first black vice presidential nominee. Victory would set him up well to be just the second black president and would set up a useful contrast with Vice President Kamala Harris. And it worked well with Trump during his first term. A solid fundraiser whose optimism might smooth over Trump's American carnage and rough edges. Here's the cons. Scott's presidential campaign, this according to the Washington Examiner, this year floundered as he struggled to connect with Trump-era Republican voters. His support for criminal justice reform isn't the positive it was before crime reemerged as a top issue in 2020. Not from a state that is really in doubt in November. That is, South Carolina is a red state. All right, so he doesn't bring anything to the ticket in that sense. But does he have mass national appeal? I think with a lot of independents, frankly, he does. They also say, while fairly benign compared to the matters being discussed, Trump's Stormy Daniels hush money trial, the recently engaged Scott's carefully guarded dating life seemingly fascinates political reporters. I really don't give a flip. All right. So I'm not, I'll just say this. I don't think Tim Scott is the man for the job, but I believe he is probably, there's 9 people that are listed here. I believe he's probably in the top contention. All right. That's my belief. Does Donald Trump believe that he'll win over black voters? I saw Sonny Hostin on The View like, oh, does he really believe that that Tim Scott will win over black men? I don't believe he will. I don't believe he will. I believe that Biden's failing economy will win over some black people. And the more we amplify Biden's failing economy and Biden's failing policies, from foreign policy to just how violent and crazy some of the neighborhoods that many blacks live in have become under his leadership and with the left and the defund the police movement. But I'm not a fan of Senator Tim Scott. I think he's too moderate for the job. And I mean policy wise and also in demeanor. And I don't think he has a hold of what's happening with communism. I do not like the fact that, and I talked about this years ago. I hear some hosts talking about it now, but I talked about it years ago, and I came out against it years ago on radio. I do not like the fact that Senator Tim Scott kind of wanted to nationalize the police, in my opinion. I wasn't a fan of it when Trump did it. I do not like that. The federal government has no business in local and state police. What they can do is use their platform to speak out against crime, to put people on blast, so to speak, to speak up for innocence, in America. But I don't want all this federal funding and federal police. I don't want any of that stuff. All you're going to do is create a bigger deep state. And so I'm concerned about that when it comes to Senator Tim Scott. I think he tends to be a guy that's big government and that's more moderate. And honestly, America will not survive. And that you can't try to go for the gusto with Trump and then just go backwards again. And I feel like that's why his campaign fizzled. I feel like we'll go backwards. If he were to lose his Senate, or he would have to drop out, honestly, his Senate seat is safe, I think, in South Carolina. But the problem with South Carolina, for whatever reason, it's just like Ohio. You get a majority red state that are filled with a bunch of rhinos, and they do hardly anything. It is the most red state, and they are so weak. It's insane. All right. Number 3, you have J.D. Vance. Now, I like Senator J.D. Vance. And guys, let me tell you something. Senator J.D. Vance, he might make a good VP. And right now, they say odds. This is I don't know what to make of these odds. Odds for Rubio becoming Trump's VP plus 1,400. Odds for Senator Tim Scott is plus 540. For J.D. Vance, it's plus 1,200. They say these are the pros of J.D. Vance, the mostly ideological aligned candidate on Trump's short list. Obviously, the author of Hillbilly Elegy, could ensure that the Republican Party continues to cultivate a more blue-collar base in economic populism and skepticism on foreign military interventions. Vance is more consistent on many of these policy areas than Trump is, they write. Yeah, and honestly, for those of you that may not know, if I recall correctly, I believe Trump read Hillbilly Elegy or somebody told him about it, and he gave kudos to Vance back in the day. But J.D. Vance went for Ted Cruz. He was like, I don't think Trump is the guy to usher this in. That was a big contention. But they say that J.D. Vance could play a Cheney-like role, but from the opposite wing of the party in a Trump administration that was often drift on personnel in the first term. He's also young, turning 40 at the GOP convention. The cons, they claim, are Vance's departure from the Senate could deprive Trump of a valuable congressional ally, especially after Minority Leader Mitch McConnell steps down from leadership and plays a more gadfly type role. I think J.D. Vance needs to spend more time in the Senate, and I don't think that we should lose his voice in the Senate. I really don't. Ohio, although a red state, you guys heard the podcast that I did a couple of weeks ago here. It is a very weak, it is a rhino state, and you need somebody with a voice like J.D. Vance, in my opinion, in the Senate. My hope would be that one day he would run for governor. Guys, this is the thing. He hasn't done anything yet. I mean, he's in the Senate. I appreciate that. I appreciate his consistency. He's actually more Trump than Trump on some of these policies, and I absolutely appreciate that. But I want to see a little more time in the Senate, and I don't want to. I don't necessarily believe, I hate to say it, but I don't necessarily believe that the seats in Ohio are safe seats because you guys have so many rhinos there. So I don't want to leave that seat or lose that seat. Representative Elise Stefanik. All right, so she's emerged, according to the Examiner, as a skilled Trump defender and fundraiser. She is also a member of the House Republican leadership team. She could help Trump woo suburban women. She does not turn 40 until July, shortly before the convention. She played a role in the GOP gains in New York, which provided crucial to narrow Republican House majority. And I think Elise Stefanik is very skilled in what she does. She is almost a Democrat, guys. Her voting record, if you look at it, she's like just over 50%. That would be a train wreck. There's some things she's really good on. Obviously, when she questioned those college presidents and all that, she was absolutely amazing. But to me, that's kind of where it stops. But the odds are 1,450%, because maybe Trump would want to appeal to those suburban women voters. I tend to believe that the country, and maybe I'm wrong, I tend to believe that the country has gotten so bad under the leadership of Biden. If you start talking about safety issues, if you start talking about economic issues, kitchen table issues that women are concerned about, that will give them a sense of safety and security. If you highlight what Biden is doing bad in those particular areas, then I think that's how you win. Representative, so I'm a big no on Representative Stefanik. I just think she's way too liberal. That's not what we need going forward. Then you have Representative Byron Donalds, relatively young black gentleman, solid conservative. The odds are that if he isn't picked as VP, he will probably likely run for governor of Florida after Governor DeSantis. I'm now torn between him and our own Ashley Moody, the Attorney General, for governor. At first, I was like, oh man, just straight up Byron Donalds. But Ashley Moody has been doing a lot of work, and she seems to be a real fighter. And so I'm not against her, at least at this point, becoming governor. And plus, she has some experience at that state level. Even though Byron Donalds has experience on the national level. But they say the pros, again, he's young, he's black, solidly conservative, an effective participant in congressional hearings. He's good on television. All of that stuff is impressive. He's impressive to the Trump world. The cons are, according to the Examiner, Donalds is only in his second congressional term. Well, a lot of us forget that, right? He's a dominant figure on television already and personality, but he's only in his second term. He hasn't been tested by a national campaign before. As a Florida resident, he also has the same technical constitution headaches as a Rubio or a DeSantis. If Donald's moved rather than Trump, it could complicate his political future if the ticket loses in November. That's a great point. Donald's can't move from Florida. It would have to be a Trump moving from Florida. But that's probably the same with all of them. But the odds of his pick are 3,300. Governor Doug Burgum. Now, I heard that he was a conservative of conservatives, but I looked at his Liberty score. I don't know if this was a mistake, but it was really low. I mean, it was really low. And so I'm sorry, I'm getting this text from that I have to answer right in the middle of this podcast. So I'm sorry, I'm literally doing this. I have someone working at my house right now. And so anyway, that's that. All right, Governor Doug Burgum. Again, Republican presidential candidate. I mean, he didn't make a splash at all in the presidential race. He paid some people to make sure that his name stayed on the ballot. My understanding that he was a real conservative, but I'm not so sure unless this score is wrong. Burgum has unexpectedly worked his way up from an asterisk candidate. These are the pros for the GOP presidential nomination as someone with a real shot to be on the ticket with Trump. He's a successful businessman and capable fundraiser whose demeanor is a good balance with Trump. And that is going to be important. Whose demeanor is going to be a good balance for Trump. Obviously, Trump is a very dominant figure. You're going to need somebody that's solid, somebody that's steady, right? To fill that role, kind of that Pence filled. But I think someone that doesn't just do the act, but somebody that's real, that's going to carry on policy and mean it when they get forward. Guys, there's never going to be another Donald Trump. I think the mistake that a lot of conservatives may make is trying to find the next Donald Trump. Not going to happen. Never. Not going to find another George Washington. Not going to find another Abraham Lincoln. That's not going to happen. History has gone. History has done its thing. All right. And then we move on. God uses these people for a time, and then we move on. All right. So that's just the way that it works. I'm sorry. So if you're looking for another Trump, it simply isn't going to happen. So what you're going to look for or need is an effective president after Trump to make sure that all of the things that Trump talked about actually get done, because they won't get done in 4 years, no matter how much you think so. Governor Kristi Noem, no. I'll just tell you straight out the bat. She really, I mean, when she killed her dog, she killed her political career. I don't know. I'm thinking whoever helped publish her book or whoever told her to put that out in a presser must have worked for the Biden campaign or donated to Biden or voted for Biden. That's the dumbest move, I think, or at least one of the dumbest moves. The dumbest move that I can remember ever in politics. I mean, you just straight up killed your career. But here's the Washington Examiner. Actually, it shouldn't even be a career. I shouldn't be talking like that. One of the most conservative women available with executive experience and a plausible vice presidential resume. Noem looked like she could be Sarah Palin in a good way and was in the early front runner for VP. I hate how they just demean Sarah Palin. Sarah Palin was an excellent VP pick. But what the left did, and you hear, I forget his name, the black dude that the communist, Van Jones, that now works, I forget for which network. I think it's MSNBC. Very smart guy, very intelligent guy. I actually like listening to his commentary, even though he's on the left, because he actually does make sense at times. I mean, there's some wacky commies, and there's some that can actually argue a point. Van Jones is one of those that can argue a point, which sometimes he actually seems more liberal than commie. So that's fascinating to So that's absolutely fascinating to me. But what the left did, and he admitted that the left focused on destroying Sarah Palin because they thought she brought a lot to the ticket, and they decided to use mockery and jokes in order to do that. And so, unfortunately, it worked. It worked. And now you've got semi-conservative outlets like the Washington Examiner repeating that. But again, Kristi Noem, I'm telling you, that story with her shooting her dog, and she's still out talking about it. If I were her, the best advice that the best advice, in my opinion, that people could give in her campaign is just shut up and try to move on to other issues and be more conservative if you can. That is going to be the best, absolute best thing she could do. But it seems like she's incapable of doing it. And also, her Liberty score was really low. Her Liberty score was in the 50s, guys, when she was in the House. That means that she's kind of like an Elise Stefanik, and she gets lauded as this conservative, but she really isn't as conservative. When it came to the lockdowns, the COVID lockdowns, it was actually her legislature that forced her hand in keeping the state open and all that kind of stuff. And the same is true for the trans issue in the state of South Dakota. So Kristi Noem isn't the conservative that we think. Listen, I'm not trying to knock the woman. I don't think she's ready for prime time. I saw Steve Deace mention earlier, some people have it. I'm paraphrasing. Some people have it. Some people don't when it comes to the national level. Kristi Noem, in my opinion, she may be good for South Dakota. And even that I'm questioning now, frankly, given the fact that the legislature had to force her hand on COVID lockdowns, and then she took credit for it. All right. But anyway, she's a no-no for me. Ben Carson, former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. These are the pros of him. He's an accomplished doctor and popular. He was a neurosurgeon and one of the best in the world. All right. So let's give him his due. Carson's senior Secretary of Housing and Urban Development under Trump was not one of the more controversial parts of the first term. He ran for president in 2016. And could replicate Pence's appeal to evangelicals, and he might help Trump build on his inroads. Here's why I'm a straight no for Dr. Ben Carson, and I absolutely, I love the guy, but he's 72 years of age. All right, I'm sorry, guys. I'm just going to be straight with you. I don't want a 72-year-old vice president possibly trying to run at 76 again and staying for 8. No, I'm sorry. I just don't want that. And I do believe that Ben Carson has I believe he has the strength to be able to fight against these commies. But for one, his age, and also the way that he speaks and his tone, I'm not sure how many people he can sway. I'm just being real. Trump is a force multiplier, and a lot of people don't have that ability. Then the last person they mentioned is former Hawaii Democrat Representative Tulsi Gabbard. Oh, by the way, Ben Carson's odds are 1,650. Kristi Noem's odds, where are her odds? Not applicable, but they've dipped significantly. The last person you have is Representative Tulsi Gabbard. Gabbard brings diversity as a youngish woman of color. I hate when people use the term a woman or people of color on the right. It's the dumbest thing ever. We're falling right into the trap of using the left's language. She has a military background that's also consistent with Trump's America First foreign policy. Would make a splash, could be especially helpful with voters undecided between Trump and Robert Kennedy. Had a highly effective moment against Harris in a debate. Remember, she made Harris look like a fool by VP Kamala Harris when VP Kamala Harris was, like a pro weed or whatever. And then you had Tulsi Gabbard was like, listen, didn't you lock up a lot of these people that were just smoking pot? All right. The Kanza Hawaiian was until very recently a Democrat, and during her congressional career positioned herself as a progressive one. She supported Bernie Sanders in 2016. She has flip-flopped ideologically more than once, has a strange backstory that will surely be fodder for the press. Will get attacked from all sides. The Bashar-Assad meeting. Listen, no. I'm a straight no on Tulsi Gabbard. And I love what Tulsi Gabbard, I think, brings to the conservative movement and the role that she's playing, speaking out and being absolutely fair. But she's been in the House. And when she was in the House, she wasn't just a liberal. She was a progressive. So, guys, there's going to be area. I mean, obviously she's an attractive woman. Obviously, she's a smart woman. She's strong. She's a woman of conviction. I think for the most part, I don't want to see her as VP because I don't want to figure out what she believes on the fly. Now, there's one person that was missing on this list. And honestly, I think this person would be the best VP. And some of you may disagree with me, and that's okay. It's okay to be wrong. But the best person for VP, and I understand the complications, is DeSantis. I still believe it's not even close. I don't see a second person. And honestly, I wouldn't have mind seeing Senator Ted Cruz, but Senator Ted Cruz, I mean, the left is going after Senator Ted Cruz as they always do in his senatorial run. And I like his voice in the Senate. I just don't see anyone that has been proven effective on all of the issues that we're dealing with except Governor Ron DeSantis. Everything, I put it this way, everything that Trump wanted to accomplish on a national level, we see DeSantis accomplishing on a state level and then some, right? I think he would have the intestinal fortitude to do the same on the national level. This is a guy who's not, there's never going to be a Trump. There's never going to be someone as charismatic as Trump. And frankly, the next president, in my opinion, if it's a Republican president, has to be a guy that's just going to go put his head down and get stuff done legislatively. No more executive orders. Part of Trump's downfall was he literally only, the only thing that he got legislatively were the tax cuts. That's it. And I expect that. Now, he did get judges in place. But frankly, even if it were Ted Cruz, I think Ted Cruz would have got judges in place as well. So I think those things are expected. I know everybody want to give Republican. Those are things that we should expect. Those are the simple things. It just happened that those three judges fell into Trump's lap. And so I am thankful. However, I don't think a lot of people would have had the cojones to fight for Kavanaugh. Probably nobody would have had the cojones to fight for Kavanaugh like he did. And that's what really endeared me to former President Trump and hopefully future President Trump. But anyway, I still expected that to happen because, the left is going to go crazy. But I think the name missing off this list and still by far the person that would be the best vice president. And I am convinced that even if we were to lose a DeSantis in Florida, we could pick up a Byron Donalds for governor. We could pick up an Ashley Moody for governor. I think we would be okay. I'm not convinced that either Byron Donalds or Ashley Moody would be as good as Governor DeSantis, but he's doing so much stuff legislatively. In Florida, I don't think they need to be. All right. So jobs, economy, foreign policy, crime, culture, limited government spending, election integrity, deep state stuff, racial issues, all of this stuff, women, getting out more women voters, school choice. All of this stuff is stuff that DeSantis has accomplished. No one else has his resume. No one on this list. All of them together don't have his resume. Guys, listen, I appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. And again, until next time, do not grow weary doing good. God bless you.